Today, we're diving into a legal battle that really gets to the heart of workers' rights in our modern economy. And this isn't just a story about a few watchmen. It's about a decade-long fight against a system designed to trap permanent workers in a never-ending cycle of temporary contracts.
Now, get this. Those are not my words. That is the powerful conclusion from a high court, a direct shot at a state government's actions. This one sentence really captures the entire spirit of a long, hard fight for basic dignity and fairness.
And this was the incredible outcome. The court didn't just kind of lean towards the workers, it delivered an absolute knockout blow to the state's entire employment strategy. So the big question is, how on earth did they manage to pull this off? Okay, let's get into it. To really get the weight of this verdict, you first have to understand the people behind it. This wasn't some quick legal squabble. For guys like Manak Singh and his colleagues, this was more than a decade of their lives on the line. Just look at this timeline. These guys started way back in 2008. For 12 years, they showed up every day, doing essential, full-time work. But when they finally asked for the job security that should come with that kind of dedication, the state just flat out said no. And that rejection in 2020, well, that was the final straw that kicked off a 5-year court battle leading to this huge decision. So how did the state keep them in this kind of employment limbo for so long? Well, they used a really common tactic, something we're seeing more and more these days, the outsourcing loophole. Let's break down exactly how this game was played.
See, on paper, the state's argument seemed kind of straightforward. Hey, they're not our employees. We pay a contractor, the contractor hires them. Simple. But the court looked past the paperwork and saw what was actually happening on the ground. The work wasn't temporary at all. It was perennial, meaning it was constant, ongoing, and totally necessary. And here's the kicker. The state itself was giving them their daily orders, supervising everything they did. The court saw the contractor for what it was, just a middleman, a convenient shield for the state to hide behind.
And this is where the financial reality just smacks you in the face. The state was paying 14,000 rupees for each worker, but the worker, the person actually doing the job, they only saw 8,500 of that. A huge chunk, 5,500 rupees, nearly 40%, was just evaporating into the middleman's pocket. So this system wasn't just about denying job security, it was actively taking money out of the workers' hands. So the court put a name to this whole scheme, an unfair labor practice. And what's so powerful here is how clearly this is defined. It's simple. If the job is permanent in nature, and you keep someone doing that job for years and years on a contract just to dodge giving them benefits, well, the law says that's fundamentally unfair. And that became the legal core of their whole case. Now, the court didn't just stop with a technical ruling. Oh no, it issued this incredibly powerful moral and legal takedown of the entire system, a practice it called ad hocism, basically the state's bad habit of using flimsy, temporary fixes for permanent, ongoing needs. And pulling from a major Supreme Court precedent, the High Court made it crystal clear. You cannot use outsourcing as a convenient shield. If the job itself is permanent, if it's essential, you can't just pretend it's temporary by sticking a contractor in between. The court saw right through that flimsy defense. And here's another critical point the court drove home. The government isn't just any old employer. It's a constitutional employer. That means it has to be held to a higher standard. So the whole argument that making people permanent is too expensive, it was completely thrown out. The court's message was loud and clear. You don't get to balance your budget on the backs of your most essential workers. Period.
This right here was the final nail in the coffin. The court flat out declared that this entire culture of ad hocism has to be condemned. This wasn't just about one specific case anymore. It was a judgment on a widespread exploitative practice that had been going on for far too long.
So, with the state's arguments completely dismantled, the court laid down its final verdict. And it wasn't just a simple you win for the workers. It was a set of very specific, non-negotiable orders. First, the court completely quashed that 2020 order that started this whole mess. Gone. Second, it gave the state a very tight deadline. You have 6 weeks to make these watchmen permanent. But now listen to this. Step 3 is the really brilliant part. The court added an automatic trigger. It said if the state doesn't comply, if they try to drag their feet, the workers will be deemed regularized anyway. This was a genius move to stop any more bureaucratic games. And finally, all those years they worked had to count toward their future benefits.
This victory was absolutely monumental for these watchmen, but its impact, its ripple effect goes so much further. This case sets a powerful precedent for millions of other workers who are caught in these same kinds of traps all over the country. So where are the big takeaways? Well, this ruling sends a few really powerful messages. First, the state has to be a model employer. It needs to set the standard, not create a race to the bottom. Second, saving a few bucks is never a valid excuse for exploitation. It's a direct challenge to this whole culture of using temporary contracts for jobs that are clearly permanent. It gives real hope to other outsourced workers, and it puts a massive stamp of approval on that fundamental principle: equal pay for equal work.
And that leaves us with this final massive question. I mean, sure, this case was about government watchmen, but this model, using intermediaries and apps to hire people for long-term work, that's the bedrock of the entire modern gig economy, isn't it? This ruling draws a line in the sand, but the larger debate is far from over, and it forces all of us to ask, in the 21st century, what does job security even mean anymore?